Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends, as this video is brought to you by drroto.com.
Good early afternoon, my friends. We are back here at drroto.com with In the Cup, getting ready to talk about Mexico Open with me, my friend, Adam White. Hey, last week, Adam, we picked some good picks, buddy. Luke List, which you said if I play him, don't play him. If I don't play him, play him. You didn't play him. I played him. Tied for second. We said Zalatoris. We said Poston, both top tens. What happened there? Top tens.
Harris
English. Cam Young, not Cam Davis. Cam Young. He did well. Cam Davis, though, day one, baby. Woo.
I think the outside of the Luke List thing, which if he's coming out of my mouth, he's the most frustrating part of my week. That is a lock. Other than that, my first look build, which I really told myself I was going to stick with and did not, had Hideki in it, whom we trashed a little bit last week, and he made us.
We trashed him. We're really good. If any of you bettors out there put a big bet on somebody and you would like that bet to pay off, you just let us know before the show. Can you give me a reason not to bet on XYZ? We'll shred him for you, and then he'll take off.
Well, that's the stupid part is, like, Riviera and Augusta are very well correlated. Great ball strikers, tee to green, tend to play very well at Riviera, which is exactly why I was on Zalatoris. It seemed like such a great idea. Hideki's a very similar player to Zalatoris. So, however, I got on Will Z and trashed Hideki and was like, nah, he couldn't do it. Look, I think Decky now at this point is just an inconsistent player who still has the ability to peak and obviously win on a given week on any given golf course. So,
do you think it's just, I mean, we talked about it last week, right? Focus based. He won his big one. He got it off his back. Now he's just gonna kind of play when he wants to play.
I don't know. There's probably some of that for sure. Like,
he's been around forever.
When you climb the mountain and you have so much pressure on you and media attention, like, you got to understand, this guy has Tiger Woods like media attention on him back in Japan, in his home country, almost every single week in a big event, especially majors. So for him to climb that mountain and finally do it, it's just hard to continue to find reasons to get back up and work your ass off. He also battled some injuries the last couple of years too,
and that's why we were way down on him. And then, boom.
I guess the lesson is going to be elite ball strikers. If they're healthy, they're viable plays.
I think that's true. All right, buddy. Well, take us over to Mexico. Tell me about the course. What's going on there? What are we looking for?
So we are heading down to the Vedanta Mexico Open. We are looking at about a 7,400-yard par 71 golf course. Tony Finau and John Rahm have won the last 2 years, so it has been elite players that have played very well there. This is the third year they've played on this golf course, so we have a little bit of course history there. You want bombers, you want guys who can make a lot of birdies, winning scores being at 24 under and 17 under respectively. This year, I would expect those scores to be more like the 24 range because the weather looks very benign. So I think it allows us to identify at least what makes sense as the guys who are going to pop this week. And despite us having a very weak field down in Mexico, I'm still excited because it gives us a chance to look at some random names and dudes you don't see very often and that we are probably never going to talk about again until next year at this event. So,
well, I like to, throw out players for you because you know way more than I do. So I'm sure I've got lots for you today because this field is full of names that I don't know, as well as DraftKings for the first time in many, 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 many years, dipping down into the $5,000 range. Is that a trap? Is it a trap? Is everybody in that range a trap, sir?
I don't think everyone in that range is a trap, but I think being able to identify who is not a trap is like a fool's errand. You're just probably not going to be able to manage it.
All right.
So we'll get into the bargain basement plays here
for sure. So let's start at the top. Obviously, there is exactly one world-class player in this field, and it is Tony Finau. Shockingly, projections I've seen still don't have him as high as Scotty's were last week, even though he's the class of the field. Not only is his ownership up, though, but basically all the metrics that we look at, he's kind of at the top of the field all the way around. Can you fade Tony from ownership alone, or you just play him and know that you'll get different in some of these names that people might not know as well?
Yeah, it's hard to fade a guy who finished second in his first event here and first last year, and it caters to long drivers of the golf ball and players who are great when their mid to long irons are in their hands. Everything points to Tony. However, if you want to win a GPP this week, I think you should fade him. I don't want to say you have to fade him because he's going to be 30% owned. But as much as I do think he's an elite player, I think his putter is likely enough to fail him completely and make him a player you don't have to have.
And not only is he 30% owned, but he's 20% higher priced than the next closest person.
This is true, and that's a big factor. When we start looking at the guys below him, like just finishing up on the Tony Finau thing, I'm betting on his putter causing him problems, which it has done this year, even more than in past years. His putting has gotten worse statistically than it was last year, so that's what I'm banking on. I'm heading down to some guys down below. The other guy, you said there's only one world-class player. I think there's one guy who, in the rest of the season, could become considered a world-class player, like bona fide top 20 at least. And that's Nikolai Højgaard. Now, Grillo is actually priced between Finau and Højgaard, which I think makes him a good value. The betting markets agree with that. So because of that and the fact that he is also a great course fit, number 2 in any ratings you'll pull up based on relevant statistics, I love Højgaard there as a guy up in this top range that you can go after who has a pretty darn good chance to win. And you get about a 10%, close to a 10% ownership discount on him, at least 5 between Finau and Højgaard. So that's where I'm going at the very, very top.
But I cannot, and I absolutely will not ignore my man Detry, who has been taking me to profit land so far this year.
Dude, you took it out of my mouth. I was going to say you could also make an argument that Detry is sort of on the precipice of doing the same thing.
I've played him every week. Every week he's been available. I've slapped him in the lineup.
I believe we talked about him at the Waste Management. I think he's on the brink of doing something similar to what we talked about Højgaard doing, where he's going to be a Ryder Cupper every 2 years. He's going to be that one of the, I wouldn't say an anchor, but he's going to be like that 5, 6, 7 range for Ryder Cup teams on the Europe side that they can rely on. So the guy makes a ton of birdies. He hits it plenty long. He's also a guy you could look at, and I believe his ownership is looking considerably lower than some of the other guys up top. So Detry to me is the other guy that I'm strongly considering up above that 10K range. He's looking at about 15% ownership. So gives you about half the ownership approximately of Finau, and not the same winning upside, but enough where it's worth it.
I like it. So let's go back again to a European, Steven Jaeger. I got him wrong earlier this year. I bet on him the week that he crashed and burned, and I got off him the next week, and he finished like a top 15. He is looks like the number 3 projected scoring player on the week, according to our models that we're looking at, and the 3rd or 4th highest owned player. I feel like I can get the same game out of Detry and get just a tiny bit less ownership. So I don't know if I can go to Jaeger, but tell me about Jaeger.
Yeah, Jaeger's the guy who has popped in the past in these weaker fields. He has shown some definite potential to contend. I just don't like the course fit this week. So course fit combined with ownership, he's not a significantly long player off the tee relative to these guys up top. And like you said, Detry, I think, gives you a better opportunity at only $300 more this week, given the course fit and his recent form. That's the direction that I'm going, despite the fact that he hasn't played here before. I also like a guy that's $100 more than Jaeger right there at Keith Mitchell, who's a phenomenal driver of the golf ball, can make a ton of birdies on the right courses. This you're going to see some ownership on the guys below him too. So Jaeger to me, pushing 20% ownership, not a great course fit. It's just not a guy that I'm looking to put a lot of money into. With as high as the ownership kind of is up here in this top range, I think you got to really plant your flag and be a little more precise with who you're on. Maybe 2 guys, at most 3 that you're playing if you're only playing a few lineups like I do.
For sure. A couple of guys that we've liked in the past, Patrick Rogers, Eric Van Rooyen. We've liked them in the past in 7K ranges. I know it's a weaker field, but 9.5 and 9.7 for these guys. I think the name bias alone is going to make me not look at him. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's hard to look at those guys at their prices. We talked about Rodgers pre-show. You know, he's been a guy I've looked at and thought he was a great value play in the 7Ks and even high 6Ks in the past, and he's just burned me almost every single time. He's finished top 10 the last 2 years here, but his recent form's been pretty terrible. So I'm banking on him being a fade this week at the end of the week. Good chance he has a good round here or there throughout the week, but I think at the end he could have that, you know, that one round that kills him where he's 1, 2, 3 overpower in a shootout week. And you just wish you hadn't gone there. I like him more in tournaments where the winning score is around like 10 to 15 deep, not 20 plus.
Yeah, I can agree with that, man. I tell you what, I don't really like the 9K range, not even a little. I think I'm going to start after the top guy or two that I pick, and I'm going to head down to Davis Thompson. He's the guy that pops in the top of the 8Ks. He pops higher than almost every player in the 9K. Tell us about Davis Thompson.
Yeah, Davis is a guy that just looking at.
If I said Thompson Davis, I'm sorry, but it's Davis Thompson.
Davis, these two first name guys, man, they'll kill you. There's also a Davis Riley, which, you know, Riley Davis could just as easily be.
It's true.
Be a name. But yeah, Davis Thompson's a player that he does kind of have the course fit as far as his game goes. He's a longer player. He has popped in some reasonably big events in the past. Because of the ownership, a lot of people are seeing what you're seeing. Because of the ownership projections, he's looking at like up around the 20% mark. I personally just can't. I can't do it. I got to play the game theory and ownership strategy here because he's just not a player to me that garners the ownership he's getting. Now, if he ends up looking at closer to 10% ownership, he's probably a guy I'll end up getting on. I want to check back here, you know, late tonight, tomorrow morning and see what happens. But right now, I like a couple guys closer to him than I do him. There's two guys up at the top here that I think are actually, because of ownership, kind of sucker plays, and that's him and Jake Knapp. Jake Knapp is riding some good form recently. He's kind of the hot name. Everyone likes him. He's got the long flowing hair coming out of his hat, but he's not a guy that I'm playing when his ownership kind of spikes. I'd rather go back.
You mean I should resurrect the all hair team?
That's never a bad idea. I mean,
I don't know, man, but the captain of the all hair team, Charlie Hoffman, no longer has hair, though.
That's true. He should be the captain too. I think at this point, all right, I don't want to go too long on players' hair. I know it's a boring week and there's not a lot going on, but I would rather talk all traps team than I would all hair team at this point.
All right, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You have been in on Doug Gim many times in the past. He seems to perform well when there's not superstars around him. Is it a Doug Gim week?
I do not think it's a Doug Gim week. The guy that I was going to is someone who will be all but forgotten for weeks at a time, tournaments at a time, and then all of a sudden pop at the events where he plays well. That gentleman is Mr. Cameron Champ. Back-to-back top 10s here. Course form it's shown in the past couple of years. You can be coming into this event and look like you're just playing awful golf. If you have the course fit and you gain a little bit of confidence, all of a sudden you're right there competing for the victory or at least top 10ing. So he's the guy that I like in the 8K range. His projections aren't extremely low, but with his course history, with his ability, he's shown he's won 3 times on tour. He's sub 10% right now, so I like him a lot right there at 8,600. The one we skipped over, who I'm actually fading despite his phenomenal course history here, who has finished top 10 both years he's played, actually top 5 in third and second, is Brandon Wu. I am concerned about his recent form. I know we just kind of said recent form doesn't necessarily translate to poor play here, but he's a guy just because of the ownership, people are going to get on more than they should, and I'm definitely fading Brandon Wu at 92. So definitely not a Doug Gim week for me. We can talk about somebody at the bottom of that 8K range that you like as well, though.
That I like?
That I like.
Oh, I thought you said that I like. I think I need to get to the next one for my all-time favorite player, the next range. So, you know, we'll get there.
Your all-time favorite player.
That's right.
7K range.
100%.
Oh, I think I know who it is. I
you know who it is.
I do know who it is, and I like him this week too. You want to go down to it because, like, Eckroat's a guy. Austin Eckroat at 8.
Yeah,
is a guy I'm like moderately interested in. If his ownership ends up looking like it's going to dip down closer to 7 or 6%, He's a guy that I could definitely jump on board with. Right now, it's looking closer to 8 or 9. So if that dips down, he's strictly an ownership play at this point. I like the guy, but I'm trying to stop like putting my own personal interest and biases into it. So, your favorite player in the 7K range, may I guess?
Sure.
Is it Jonathan Vegas?
Yeah, man, Johnny Vegas.
Yeah,
you know it. When it's a big bomber field, man, there's no superstars in this field, really. It's a bomber course. You got to go with Johnny Vegas. You got to, man.
And honestly, he's flashed at least enough form lately that you could, logically jump on him. T22 at the waist recently after 3 straight cuts before that, but he is a streaky player. He can go cut, all of a sudden top 23 times in a row. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. It doesn't look like his ownership's going to be particularly high. He's still sub 10%. Now, there is one guy, despite not having a great course fit, I think sometimes you have to look at a player and just say, you know what, his overall skill set is going to kind of supersede like any lack of perfect course fit at this particular course. So he's not a bomber, but I think just discounted price relative to his actual skill level makes him a value to me, and that's SH Kim. Shohung Kim at 79 is one of my favorite players. Just for that reason, like I think there's some guys that people will gravitate towards because they go, oh, he's a bomber, and they kind of fall in love with that skill set. But he can make up for it in other ways, and I could very easily see him top 10 this week. In fact, I will probably be placing a bet on that.
I like it, and he's one of the highest rating in the value rating in the data golf that we are currently taking a peek at to come up with some talking points.
Yeah, I think my strategy there is I'm going to go after him despite not being a great course fit because he's got a better skill set and he's a little bit of a value as far as where he's priced. I'll let the other guys chase the bombers in this range. Another one who's not necessarily a huge bomber, but has a top 10 here last year. He's a first-year PGA Tour member, and that is Alejandro Tosti, sitting right there, the Argentinian at 7,800. I like him sub 8%. I like his name. I like to say his name, so let's just do it.
Yeah,
let's go with Toasty. I love toast too.
Hey, so what do you think in the lower range there? A guy like Matt Wallace, who's come up on a handful of shows, pops a little bit in this particular model. I like him there. JJ Spawn down at the bottom. Tend to like him sometimes in these shorter fields. You've had some love for Joseph Bramlett in the past at 6,800.
You just got me. That would be, if we're considering, despite the pricing below 6K this week, if we're considering sub 7K as a tipsy pick, then that is my tipsy pick. He's my value play this week, Mr. Bramlett. Now, as for JJ Spawn, I forgot the other. Oh, Matt Wallace. Yeah. Wallace is a guy who's traditionally played pretty well at these weaker field events. However, this week, just his recent form combined with him not being a great course fit, I don't know. I just feel like he's at the beginning of a very prolonged slump, and I'm just not. He hasn't finished inside the top 40 once this entire year, despite it being a weaker field. I just can't really get on it. There's nothing that points to him playing well as far as course fit or anything. Spawn, kind of the same thing. I'm just not really. They're both just kind of giving me a very uneasy feeling when I look at their names this week.
I like it. All right, let's get in some names that maybe I've never heard of. That's that's a few of these. That's a few of these in here. Getting a little lower down my list here. I'm going to talk about the first guy that pops up in the value meter under 6K at 5,900, Max Grazerman. Tell me about Max. Who's this guy? Why do I need to know him?
I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know a whole lot about Max Grazerman. Like, I know he's a first-year PGA Tour player. He won multiple times on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, I believe. But I don't know his game well enough to say he's a great fit here or not. He's not particularly long based on what we're seeing out of the stats. But he is a guy that can pop. So, if you want to play Max, I'm not going to fault you for it. I just... like we were talking about, these guys sub 6K right now. I'm not going to. I don't see anybody that pops where I'm like, man, I got to play him. If Callum Tarrant showed any form at all, I would be on it. But I'm sticking with the guys between 6 and 7 this week.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're looking at the points projected scoring on Data Golf, like there isn't anybody even worth considering outside of Grazerman, like scoring 60 points for the week.
Yeah, when you start looking at those projections, like most of these guys are projected in the 40s or at most the mid 50s. We talked about it last week. Like, yes, you want guys that can 10K, but I don't want to look at a guy at 5,600 and say, well, if he has a really good week, he could get me 60 points. I'd rather go to a guy in the 6K range where I look at and say, you know what, he's got a legit chance at putting 75, 80 points on the board,
Right.
given his birdie making prowess, the course fit, where he's going to finish. I just don't see guys in this 5K range that have a good chance to top 30 in overall DraftKings points on the week. And that's what I'm looking for is upside here. Now, that being said, one or two of them is probably going to pop, but how the heck do you figure it out?
I'm involved in a few degenerate gambling, discords. And the name of the morning has been Rico Hoey. Who is that guy? I've never heard that name.
Yeah, again, like this is one of the few weeks, Kitty's making an appearance. One of the few weeks where I'm going to look at some of these guys and go, man, I don't know much about him. Despite the fact that I'm, a known PGA Tour junkie, but I know he's a first-year player on the PGA Tour, graduated from the Korn Ferry Tour. Beyond that, he hasn't really popped and shown much as far as where he's finished this year. So not a guy I'm jumping on. Were the D-Gens looking at him for a top 20 as a DraftKings play? What were they?
Top 20.
Okay. Yeah,
top
that sounds pretty aggressive. He's missed 3 straight cuts. He, top 30 at the Korn Ferry Tour Championship, but that was 4 months ago at this point. Just not a guy that I'm excited about.
I feel that. All right, buddy. Well, we got to get out of here. Kind of a short one today. But let's do what we do. Give me your top guy you like, 10K and up.
Yeah, 10K and up. I'm going with Højgaard. He's still projected at 25% ownership, but I think that $1,300 discount between him and Finau allows you to put some more viable players down towards the bottom in your lineup. So he's my favorite kind of point per dollar play up there. That gives you some upside in that 10K above range.
I get it. Well, I'm going to be a model junkie, and I'm going to be playing by models, and the models love me some value this week. So I think I'm going to squeeze Tony and Detry into my lineup and then go cheap. I know you don't. You hate it so much that your phone shut off. I like it, but I don't know. If I fade Tony, I'll go Detry. Did I lose you? Are you back? Nah, I lost you. I lost Adam. All right. Well, I'm going Detry at the top. And if I don't fade Tony, if I fade Tony, Tony, if I decide to go there, I'm going Thompson in the middle, my friends. And I think I'm going to go. Wait, I think Adam's back. Hold on. He's back. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, if I don't fade him, I'm going Tony. If I fade Tony Finau, I'm going Detry.
I was going to say, you asked for one, then you gave me 2 yourself.
I know, but I think I'm going to skip the middle and just load up at the top. That's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to Davis Thompson as my middle of the range play.
Okay.
No reason other than the value simulations like him, and so I like him. How about you in the mid range?
Mid-range, I think we're going to have to go down to that 7.9. I don't mind the 8K range, but anybody that I kind of like, you know what? No, we'll go Cam Champ. 8,600. I like him as a play that is going to be a nice pivot from Jake Knapp, from Davis Thompson, because those guys are garnering a lot of talk, and I see their ownership spiking up closer to 15. So I'm going to go with Cam Champ down there.
Fair enough. Let me find my value play. I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go all the way down to Mr. Joseph Bramlett for my value play. Did I take him from you? We can be on the same guy. It's okay.
Yeah, but we know if we're on the same guy, he's gonna fail.
Well, it's possible.
Likely.
It's possible.
I will go with the guy we didn't mention the first round through, and that is Sami Välimäki, the Finlander. Yeah, that's just to throw a different name at you down there, slightly sub 7K. Sami Välimäki is the gentleman that I am going to pivot from Joseph Bramlett to.
I like it. All right. Well, I got to get out of here, my friend. I have, my real job to do. So I'm going to do that. But I'm going to remind anybody watching or listening that if you're watching, you should listen. We have the Dr. Roto podcast feed on Spotify, Apple, everywhere you'd like. If you're just listening, please find us at drroto.com, where you will find a weekly PGA breakdown by Miss Alicia Hunt in Millions. And you will find our cheat sheet picks, including myself and Adam's here and a few other of the staff at drroto.com. So make sure you check them all out. Adam, I'll see you next week, my friend.
See you then, my friend.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take